Kubernetes.com presents Traditional Management Incorporates the UMS7 model. Hello. When it comes to organization structure, even the most modern companies are still embracing 18th century thinking. Work division and specialization have reinforced the notion that every business can have its own unique organizational design. I'm talking about organization charts and a blind confidence on authority channels. Without denying the great success achieved by the companies mentioned, hierarchical structures are a cultural invariant. I speculate over what-if situations to illustrate the power of the UMS7 model language. Here are some famous corporations described by their own CEOs. This is what Apple looked like around Steve Jobs. This is how Google looks like sometimes. This is Amazon. And this is what Microsoft looks like according to them. All have in common a top-down authority structure. Nobody can argue with success. The alluded companies are worth trillions of dollars. The question arises whether they will have long lives or suffer the fate of other famous Fortune 500 companies like Lehman Brothers, Kodak, Enron, all of which come to mind. The UMS7 can help to identify the positive attributes, missed opportunities, and do some risk assessment. Under a cybernetic approach, things become observer dependent and a variety of possibilities. What if Apple used its hundreds of billions of dollars sitting in offshore accounts to improve iCloud or create its own social network? What if Amazon sponsored an array of courses on how to create and operate successfully in a free capitalist society? Google is embroiled in politics. What if Google made an effort to identify and clean the internet from hackers and identity thieves? Facebook received a $5 billion fine. What if Facebook used its networking skills to reorganize the US government? Huge positive changes will result when we reassess the use of the classical science paradigm, the top part of the iceberg, and start thinking in terms of the cybernetic paradigm, the unseen bottom part of the iceberg of knowledge. As things are now, the world's largest corporations are the children of the cybernetic paradigm, and perhaps they don't even know that, or they just don't care. Classical science is credited to Newton and Copernicus and Galileo. Cybernetics has Norbert Wiener as the founding father, and Heinz von Forster as the founder of second-order cybernetics, the science of the observer. Here is an explanation of how Stafford Beer Here I compare the two paradigms side by side. Please take a minute to study this chart. Here is a map I made about the scope of cybernetics and the sciences that can be directly linked to it. It is also useful to have this third map in your head when you talk about cybernetics. This is the basic feedback information system where there's a connection between outputs and inputs in a continuous feedback loop. This map is a must. It shows Ashby's law of requisite variety applied to a management system. This graph shows how the Bible system was invented, starting with the architecture of the human nervous system, and then finally arriving at the model of the Bible system. Map 6 shows what I call the rich boys management method, where you get your money, then you set objectives, you do some planning, organizing, execution, and control. This is classical management theory. And this is the UMS7 model that will map to any corporation or government structure in the world. It has the 7 systemic functions, which are security, identity, planning, direction or execution, coordination, audit, and operation. Let's build a cybernetic management structure step by step. Okay? Let's go. What is a universal and cybernetic management structure? It is the structure used by nature to build every living being, from the smallest cell to the blue whale. It is the DNA-defined structure that allowed the creation of the human brain. Any organizational structure that follows the cybernetic laws of control and communication. The first thing is you identify your space. You set a border. This is your company. Defining a border is definitely the first step. Second, your company is also a part of a business environment where you buy things and transform them and turn them into products you sell. Not so fast, guys. Before we get there, let's make another distinction. A blue space and a red space. The blue space on top is where the thinkers reside, the problem solvers. And the first thing they do is protect their property. They take security measures. The red part at the bottom has the doers. So you have thinkers on top and doers on bottom. Another name for thinking is exploration. You seek new knowledge, new technologies, new methods, and you have to answer many questions. Doers do the exploitation of the ideas that exploration came up with. Good ideas on how to be efficient at what you do. Someone will say that the doers are the exploited ones. Okay, maybe. In the UMS7 model, the top is also called management. And the bottom part is called the operation. Whatever you do, what the business does, sells or exchanges for a living. That's the operation. Management is then divided into three main functions: the director or chief executive, direction is aided by planning, which has two main reasons to exist: learning and adaptation. A very dynamic and never-ending job. Planning can be depicted by showing the exploration of the future environment. However, planning and directing have a confrontational spirit. One takes care of the here and now, that is the direction or execution, and planning is focused on the outside and then. To set the balance, you must listen to the shareholders. They control the identity function. They set up the business, and it is their money that is in play. Once you have all these elements in the management, you can go downstairs to the operation, and it can break down into a recursive structure containing other systems with exactly the same structure as the parent company. These can be other daughter corporations or a system or process of some kind. Anyway, we use the same management business unit structure or cybernetic management structure to define how they are put together. The process repeats itself, and it will become clear when we finish with the rest of the structure at this system under focus level. The blue management with the red operation level. So we notice that the large operation in red can have 2, 3, or more sub-operations or processes, sharing the same structure as the whole. Here we add a third sub-operation. Then a fourth. And a fifth. It is very clear by now that the structure of the whole is the same as the structure of the individual parts. They look the same because they are put together the same way. Now let's see how the whole thing works. Let's look at the connecting information channels that put the whole thing together. This is the vertical command channel, the white line in the middle. The distinctive feature is that this is a two-way street. All commands have a commitment as a response, resulting from some sort of negotiation where mutual commitments are agreed upon. This generates a learning experience to all involved. To ensure that the model stays consistent, each of these managed business units has its own environment, its own area of operations or markets, and are connected to them through their own channels. To the right, in yellow, we see the coordination channels leading to the coordination center. These channels allow coordination without a direct intervention from the director or the vertical command channel. This feature serves a regulatory need to optimize through agreements and production schedules. Coordination means creating a joint order. This regulatory job takes a lot of work away from the director. The better the sub-operations can resolve their issues on their own, the less commands will be needed from the director. This is a control principle copied from the human nervous system, the so-called autonomic control. Let's show this communication channel. The sub-operations can talk to each other and work together without requiring orders from above as much as possible, without losing the overall purpose. A high degree of autonomy among the parts does not mean a lack of supervision. The audit channel from the VSM is converted in the Universal Management System 7 model into the anomaly detection channel on the left, and it is the place to counterbalance the maximum autonomy viable organization principle. In this graph, I have disencumbered the graph and suppressed the lines for aesthetic and really practical purposes, but keep in mind the connections and the particular environments are in their places and have a good reason to be there. A company's organization equals its communications structure. Now I'm going to add a very important component to the viable system, and in this case the UMS7 system. It includes its suppliers, which are shown as part of its relevant environment. Let's take a look. Here they are. The UMS model is presented as an input-output box. And here the inputs are shown as the suppliers provide the materials, the personnel, and all types of external services such as energy, parts, etc. to the enterprise. On the right, we show the outputs. And the companies, customers, or clients that are buying our products, our parts, our finished goods, or services. As you can tell, the recursive or repetitive nature of the structure really has no limits, but a total of 10 levels seems to be the most you will find in really large corporations and public companies or governments. In the human body, it's cells, tissues, organs, and then the body. Onwards to the person, family, business, community, state, country. Now, take a look at how traditional management describes the United States. Compare this to our following graph using the UMS7 model. This is it. One amazing and surprising fact is that the universal management structure model works for describing a nation-state with its three elements: a territory, its people, and its government. Just change the name of the system and focus and the government units, and the game is on to the world of politics. Here we see the UMS7 presenting the structure of the constitutional government of the United States, with the people as a sovereign, a constitutional convention, and then the regular government as the director and the states as sovereign units within the whole. It is sometimes difficult to get economists to recognize this as the structure of the national economy of a given country, but this is what it really looks like. There is no viable system without a meta system. There is no economy without a meta management called the government. If we were to map a nation state as if it were a cell, these are the main economic sectors of a nation state level economy. Government is characterized as an information processor. The Universal Cybernetic Management System 7 model is a forerunner of the circular economy model that has become so popular lately. Here is a list of all the different roles that can be played by the cybernetic management structure model at the same time. The UMS7 model does everything an organization chart does and much more. It shows who is doing what exactly. Even it describes functions, it tells you who is actually doing the planning or in control of an operation, not the formal and rigid structure, but the actual organization doing the work. BPM's revolutionized management. It is not surprising that one of its founders, Fernando Flores, had a VSM background. The UMS7 is an actual mapping of a business as a process, evolving, adapting, and changing constantly. From the corporate level down to the last production process, the same model is applied throughout. The UMS7 is a graphical interface that allows you to navigate through the organization as you do with a web page. This feature is achieved given its recursive structure, which shows the system under focus and hides irrelevant information. Every system under focus is shown with its key indicators on the left and planning space on the right. The UMS7 can be considered as an enterprise system insofar as it prepared to provide business-oriented tools such as an online payments and automated billing systems. It is oriented to increase productivity and efficiency through business logic support functionality. The UMS7 management and operations have a distinct border which serves several purposes. One is security. The other is preserving an identity. The black box approach means that the entity can be seen as something that transforms inputs called ABCs into XYZs. This allows a strictly behavioral analysis that connects with Beer's aphorism. The purpose of the system is what the system does. For instance, is pollution part of the output? The cybernetic approach is all about actual behaviors from a larger universe of possibilities that studies how inputs are converted into outputs. Real-time data is used in many industrial processes, but not in top management. The UMS7 assumes all modern managers require examining possible futures and not historic or rear view mirror data. The triple indices system concentrates vital information in a decision and control center, providing an intelligence amplifier and setting for those decision makers in a large adapting company. The UMS7 is also a unique cybernetic purpose-oriented system, meaning it is built using and applying the laws of control and communications that created computers and the digital revolution. It is the science behind automation, artificial intelligence, life, and complexity too. Cybernetics means exhaustive, complete, self-organizing throughout the balancing of opposing forces. Cybernetics is all about error, correcting feedback, information, and considers every system as part of a larger ecosystem. The UMS7 takes the familiar input-output look as a useful description of the business process. Supply and suppliers on the left, and products, services, and customers, clients on the right. Then you can zoom into every supplier or service received or into the product mix or customer database. Input-output reminds us that every living system in every business organization depends on a metabolism that demands equilibrium with the environment. Lack of awareness about this leads to collapse. All the cybernetic features translate into an office space called a decision and control center, where real-time information flows into and is used to make timely decisions. Better known as an operations room during World War II, this space works like the business brain, reacting and correcting and doing what needs to be done. It is a site for collective intelligence to shine and ensure viability. It looks at current data and has a what-if component. The UMS7 model has a built-in planning method that involves the whole organization in 3 planning modes: normative or ideal, strategic, and tactical or operational. Planning is linked to the triple index performance system, which standardizes the measurement of operational activities regardless of the nature of the organization. The UMS7 model allows its experts to diagnose organizations much in the same way a doctor uses a CAT scan or functional MRIs to find what is wrong with a patient. Under the UMS7 scan, organizations become transparent. That is, they stop hiding their secrets. When organizational hierarchical structures are translated to their UMS7 map, the deficiencies become crystal clear. Learning organizations modify their behavior according to experience. Organizations can no longer behave as robots with pre-established responses to everything they confront. It is not enough that managers learn, but that the organization itself is doing the learning. Life is constantly adapting to new circumstances, and human organizations must do the same. The UMS7 has a built-in structure to learn and to adapt. The first involves changing behavior. The second means changing its own internal structure to ensure a better fit with the surrounding environment. Adaptation is a feature clearly missing in many organizations. and the main reason why they die suddenly. The UMS7 model is the holistic description par excellence. It includes the business together with its customers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. It is defined as a process that survives in a given environment. It is connected to its competitors and to the economic sector it belongs to. It treats workers with dignity and shows the managers a map that makes sense. It provides information in a very transparent fashion. Business intelligence comes naturally to the UMS7. It is built to provide real-time management with information flowing immediately without waiting for monthly reports. The graphical interface shows the key performance indices for every operation at every level necessary. Not only does top management get it, but those in charge of individual operations have access to their own relevant information. The UMS7 provides a framework for a decentralized accounting system that can keep track of individual operations as well as aggregate figures. The cash flows are shown running in a circular fashion, counter the input-output production and marketing processes, as they should. Both produce a graphic, balance sheet, and income statement which is easy to grasp. This is how a graphic balance sheet looks like. Organizations can also be seen as a communications network for carrying out structured or formalized conversations. The UMS7 model is one such structure, where all conversations have a channel with proper capacity. It enables complex two-way conversations that prove necessary to ensure clarity and commitment. Instead of authority, the UMS7 emphasizes collaboration, coordination, and the need for balanced control, a feature borrowed from the human nervous system. The UMS7 deals with complexity in the same way that nature does, using a recursive structure. This means that the whole has exactly the same structure as the parts and vice versa. Nature builds recursively, using unicellular organisms as building blocks. Tissues turn to organs, organs produce a person. The UMS7 does the same, insofar as every production process or business unit uses the same language or structure to create a larger entity. Recursive procedures are very powerful stuff invented in mathematics. One powerful metaphor underlying the design of the UMS7 model is the human nervous system. Originally, 6 of the 7 elements of the UMS can be mapped directly to the communication structure that allows humans to think, plan, and adapt. The UMS7 places a lot of importance on environmental signals that are a perturbation source in order to respond properly. Actually, as I've said before, the VSM evolved from mapping the human brain functions and management principles and cybernetic laws and models. Cybernetic management erases the borders between private and public management. They become basically the same thing with different names and different emphasis. The same cybernetic elements are present in both cases. This convergence is a very convenient feature of the UMS7 and reasserts the convenience and need for a common language. Shown here are 4 different types of universal cybernetic management structures. You have, first of all, several viable systems under one management. Then you have 2 or more interdependent viable systems. Then you have a more or less complicated process or a simple mechanical process. So the Universal Management System 7 is based on management cybernetics, the most powerful and efficient language for describing the control structure of any complex organization. It creates a model using cybernetic laws and principles. The UMS7 model displays the 7 basic or systemic functions needed to learn, adapt, and survive in a changing environment. The UMS7 model is a recursive and exhaustive, meaning that it is equally applicable to the whole or the parts and therefore provides a complete description. All these information sources are part of the coordination channel and packet and are there for the benefit of the operations. Here are some usual managed business units that belong with the director or CEO of the Universal Management System 7 model. These are separate because they are not viable systems in themselves. Here is a preliminary graph of the integral nature of the planning function in the Universal Management 7 model. You have an identity with normative planning, a strategic planning, and a tactical planning. Here is a representation of the identity function, which is usually the stockholders meeting or a board of directors, whoever tends to defining what the company is about. The UMS7 model changes the audit function of the VSM into an anomaly detection channel. It's a high-gain, error-correcting feedback channel. It monitors operations and productive processes directly as to not to depend on information produced or reported by them. Shown here is the sales control loop, the connection between the enterprise and the customers, clients, or users. Depicted in this graph is a way to measure the supplies control loop using the triple indices. This graph shows how the meta system or higher management works. The identity makes sure there's a balance between planning and execution. This is what a finance department looks like, considering the income and the expenses or outflow of cash. If we were to map a legal department as a managed business unit, we could use the same model over and over, except that it's not meant to be a viable system. Collective intelligence protocols are a very important way in which the universal management system settles difficult questions. These are alternative ways in which we can represent the universal management system. The look changes, but the structure is the same. This graph shows a horizontal outlay of the same model. It is useful for depicting linear processes. What is the Universal Management System 7 scan? It's a way of detecting structural deficiencies in a business, much like an fMRI detects broken bones. This graph shows 18 control loops connecting all the systemic functions to create an organized whole. This video is dedicated to the valiant innovators that created the CyberSyn experimental operations room in Chile in the early 1970s. Our appreciation and our thanks to their effort. Here is a practical mapping using the UMS7 repeatedly. Please watch other videos to know more and learn more about the UMS7 on YouTube. Thank you.